seek the Lord directly. Anyone does this, certainly delivered. So let us chant together and get the mercy of the Lord. The 10 offenses and the chanting by Bhakta Vinod Prabhuji. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. Over to you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dandat Pranam to everybody. The 10 offenses to the holy name. To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord. Point 2, to consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of the Lord Vishnu. Point 3, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. Point 4, to blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance to the Vedic version. Point 5, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination. Point 6, to give some interpretations to the holy name of the Lord. Point 7, to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name. Point 8, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. Point 9, to instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name. Point 10, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Let us offer our humble obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees, who can fulfill all desires and are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, प्रभुपाद की जय, जय गौर प्रेमानंदी, हरि हरि बोल।
नमो विष्णु पदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Vinod Prabhuji, for your blissful chanting. In fact, your chanting was inspiring us chant more. It was giving more vibration. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you very much. The 21st of this month was appearance day of Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thākura and the disappearance day of Srila Purushottam Das Thākura. Today we are going to hear glories of them from His Grace Prasanna Vasudev Prabhuji. He is the disciple of His Holiness Jayapada Swami Maharaj. The Prasanna Vasudev Prabhuji is the son-in-law of late His Grace Samagari Prabhuji and Her Grace Guladevika Mataji. Prasanna Vasudev Prabhuji is one of the person who inspires our Gauranga Desi Yatra youth boys and girls to always be connected to Krishna. He is also very good in kirtan and also good in drama and other cultural activities. He always supporting our Yatra program in all the way. Let us welcome Prabhuji with Hare Krishna Mahamandra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Over to you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Madan Mohan Prabhu. Those were kind words showered on me, though I'm not at all qualified. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's begin with the prayers itself. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. We are all assembled here this morning to glorify the Simha Guru of our Parampara, Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thākura Prabhupada. I am grateful for this opportunity and seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas, though I am not at all qualified and definitely not qualified to have any of those words that were shared by Madan Mohan Prabhu, but I am grateful to him and all the other Vaishnavas. Whatever that is shared today is by the mercy of Sri Guru and Gauranga. If anyone wants to get a deeper understanding into the life and pastimes of Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thākura Prabhupada, please get a copy of Bhakti-Siddhānta Vaibhava by His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami Maharaj, or Ray of Vishnu by His Grace Rupa Vilas Prabhu. I hope everybody is able to hear me. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be checking at this point of time. Hare Krishna.
Yes, we can hear, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Very well. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, let's understand Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thākura Prabhupada's lifetime a little early, even before he came into this world to shower mercy on all of us. So let's start from there. Then we will go through, we'll try to attempt to go through his birth, the way he came into, he was conceived, he was born, how he grew up, how he was as a child, how he was as a youth, and then thereon how he went on to take sannyas and then glorify the names of the Lord. Yeah, so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it goes all the way back till Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared only 500 years ago, while Radha and Krishna performed their pastimes 5,000 years ago. So interestingly, you see, as far as time and place are concerned, they are not connected. But as far as sentiments, as described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna, after years of manifesting pastimes as Sri Krishna in Dwapara Yuga, was satisfied but was not satiated. He enjoyed his pastimes as Sri Krishna as the object of love in Vrindavana, in Mathura, in Dwaraka, in Kurukshetra. He was the object of everyone's service of love. But Krishna, after wrapping up his pastimes, thought to himself that I have relished the mode of being the enjoyer, but now I wish to relish the mode of being enjoyed. I want to swap places with my devotees and look at myself through the vision of their ecstatic love. What in me are they seeing? This is what Krishna is thinking. What are my qualities that they relish? Okay, what is the love of performing devotional service that doesn't exist in accepting devotional service? And to relish all these different modes, Krishna appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He also wanted to know, when Krishna reciprocates with his devotees, what is the ecstatic feeling of reciprocation that a devotee feels in his heart. So Krishna is trying to understand from a devotee's point of view. There were things that Krishna theoretically knew but had no practical experience of. To have an experience of what it means to be Srimati Radharani and Krishna decided to be Gauranga Mahaprabhu. He appeared in this world for his personal greed of fulfilling the desires of devotional experience, yet at the same time he wanted to make his love accessible to all, to every soul. What a beautiful setup, right? So Radha and Krishna appeared as Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and this is out of their personal greed. And since this fruit of devotional love is so tasty, so nectarian to taste, that hardly is there any time to distribute. He empowered the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan for this work of bridging the experience that Krishna had as Chaitanya to what the conditioned souls in Kali Yuga can experience. So that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can be busy only tasting the fruit, and 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan can bridge the experience of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to those who were utterly unqualified even to hear the word prema. So without the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would have certainly relished the fruit, but he wouldn't have had any information on what that relish meant. So the 6 Goswamis and many others like Loknath Goswami, Srila Prabodhananda Sarasvatī, and so many other scholars in Vrindavan all helped reach Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, helped Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to write books explaining the experience of love. And because they are very dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whatever he experienced, in his heart, like, whatever he had, whatever experiences he had in his heart, like a devotional magnetic field penetrated through their heart. They could feel what he was feeling, and they could pen down literally the experience into words. It's not just about reading the books. They taught the Vaishnava community what Vaishnava culture is like by serving each other, by developing very wonderful Vaishnava qualities. They also established different places of pastimes, places of Radha and Krishna, where people can come, take bath, chant their mantras, and feel spiritually rejuvenated. They would mark different places commemorating different pastimes of Radha and Krishna. At the same time, they installed the deities, established temples as place of worship where Vaishnava community can come together. Now, after their time, Srila Jiva Goswami spearheaded this mission forward. He empowered his Siksha disciple, Narottama Das Thakur, Srinivas Acharya, and Shyamananda Prabhu, to hand over multiple copies of this literature. All of these acharyas had written more than 100 and hundreds of books, but they were writing it without a printing press. So there was no soft copy. It was very difficult. So which means if you need another copy of Srimad Bhagavatam, you need to write materials and instruments and write the right materials and instruments and start writing the 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam all over again. Nowadays we have printer and Xerox copier and all the amenities that we want. We can quickly print another Srimad Bhagavatam, but that was not the case during that time. Narottama Das Thakur and Shyamananda Prabhu and Srinivas Acharya made thousands and thousands of handmade copies themselves, so that the generation that we live in today get the nectar that we have. These sacrifices they sacrifice so much of their time, but we don't value their effort enough by taking advantage of these literatures. So many disciples were made in this world to spread the name of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But what happened is that after their time, there was a period of gloomy cloud shades, meaning there was a dull period. Then this has been the case with the spiritual, world or spiritual spread in this world. There has always been the ray of hope, and also the gloomy shades of the time. There were times when spirituality was at its low and spirituality was at its height. So after them, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur appeared to restore the teachings, followed by his disciple Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan. There came a time when the process of chanting the holy name introduced by Mahaprabhu and the works of the 6 Goswamis, works and the Acharyas were all in danger, and this is the gloomy time. This is when Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakura appeared. Okay, so this is the lowest time in the spirituality in the material world, the lowest time, and this is when Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur appeared, who is the father of Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur Prabhupada. He wanted to actually break through and cut through misrepresentation by giving the true knowledge to all. He was such a visionary that in 1896 he published a book on the true teachings and the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and sent it to the Canadian Library, where it's still present. He was crying and begging the Supreme Lord that I need not another incarnation, but just one ray of Vishnu. I just need one personality to help me. Somebody who is so empowered that I don't need the whole sun. I just need one single ray. Please give me this blessing. This I will pray to the Supreme Lord. And he had more than 10 children. Now at this point of time he had more than 10 children, but they were young. And Bhakti-Vinod Thakur could say the prayers were not answered yet, and he continued praying. On 6th of February 1874, in Sri Jagannath Puri Dham, Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur appeared as the son of Bhakti-Vinod Thakur and Bhagavati Devi. Srila Bhakti-Vinod Thakur could clearly see that his child is very empowered because the astrological chart had Ketu in the 12th house, which represented a liberated soul. When he appeared, he had the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck like the Brahmana thread of a Brahmana, to show that he was a Brahmana sent from the spiritual world. Very, very empowered. Bhakti-Vinod Thakur named his son as Bimala Prasada, as we know the word Bimala or Vimala. Their house was very close to the Jagannath temple. So from his house was the main road on which the Jagannath Rath Yatra would take place. Jagannath goes from Jagannath temple to Gundicha, stays there for 7 days, sometimes 10 days, and then returns. So on the way to the Gundicha temple, just outside the house of Bhakti-Vinod Thakur, once during the Rath Yatra, Jagannath decided to stop his Rath right in front of Bhakti-Vinod Thakur's house. And as we know, this happens many times. It is not only by the pushing or the pulling of the devotees that Jagannath, as the Rath moves. It is basically Jagannath moves his Rath by his own sweet will. So sometimes he moves without pulling, and sometimes he stops even after pushing and pulling. So the Rath stopped before the house of Bhakti-Vinod Thakur. Guess for how long? As not for 1 hour or 2 hours, it was for 3 days and 3 nights. He wanted to see his ray, as we call it, the ray of Vishnu Bimala Prasad. So he was called Vishnu Bimala Prasad, later to be called as Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur. Taking advantage of the situation, Bhakti-Vinod Thakur's wife, Bhagavati Devi, took the infant child who was less than 6 months on the cart and placed at the lotus feet of Jagannath. He was a baby, and as an infant, he was still trying to touch the feet of Lord Jagannath with his right hand. And soon as he did that, Jagannath's main garland fell around the neck of Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur. And everyone loudly chanted Lord Jagannath's names. And when this happened, Bhakti-Vinod Thakur bowed down to Jagannath, and that's when the cart started moving. So Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur had a very interesting childhood. He had extraordinary qualities. He displayed during the Annaprashna and Vidyarambha to give the first grains in the mouth of the child, and also to see his future inclination. What they did was, during Vidyarambham, we all know that we place different kinds of articles and paraphernalia to see the inner, the attachment of the child, or what the child would become. It's like a proclivity, basically. They had kept interesting. Similarly, Bhakti-Vinod Thakur had kept, interestingly, Srimad Bhagavatam, and it was kept. They kept all the paraphernalia. They kept everything in front, like all the material attachments or material what we look forward to was kept in the front, and he kept the Srimad Bhagavatam towards the right hand side. Now, usually what we do is, sometimes the devotees get a little ahead and they get little eager, and they keep all the shastras in front. They keep Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so on and so forth. They keep everything in front, and they keep the probably some gold coins or some food stuff, something on the side. And when the child crawls and touches one of the books, and then they say, the child wants to, become a Bhagavata and Bhagavat, so that is sometimes funny to see. But then here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur specifically kept all the material things in front and the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, on the right hand side. And he wanted to see what is the natural pulling of his child's heart. Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī, obviously being realized soul, neglected all the articles, and he went crawled straight on towards Srimad Bhagavatam and picked it up and embraced the book to the chest. As a child, it is very beautifully described, the famous incident of the mango. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had placed a mango on the table, and young Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur went crawling over there to these pieces of mango, and he started sucking on them. Bhaktivinoda Thakur came and very mildly reprimanded and said to Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur, saying that this is just a fruit, and we cannot have it unless we offer to Lord Shri Krishna. So it was a light way of saying, making his child understand that anything needs to be offered to the Lord first and then have it as prasadam. And this was for a mango. But Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur Prabhupada took it to his heart at that age, and he took a lifelong vow that never again, up until his death, will he touch a mango. And the best part is he followed it all his life at that age, to even think that this is, and it was an exemplary direction that he took in his life, and an example he set even as an infant. Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur had mastered 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita at the age of 7. Now this is moving into his, I would say, kind of into his childhood part of his life. So at the age of 7, he mastered 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita. He would expertly give discourse and explain the Bhagavad Gita at that point of time. Not only understanding it, but also have the ability to explain it. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was establishing a place of worship and preaching called the Bhakti Bhavan. During the inauguration, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur found a deity of Kurmadev, tortoise incarnation of the Lord, underground, and immediately wiped it and cleansed the deity and gave it as a present to Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur. Initiated him in the mantras of worship and instructed him to worship the Kurmadev every day. Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur is said to have mastered Sanskrit, mathematics, astronomy, astrology. When he was very, very young, it came very naturally to him, and that the teachers were actually surprised. He would keep reading Narottam Das Thakur's Prasanna and Prem Bhakti Chandrika at school. He would read these books at school when the teacher is teaching, and the teacher would actually get annoyed. Sometimes the teacher would catch him and ask, what are you reading? And he would say, I'm reading the Prasanna Prema Bhakti Chandrika. Teacher would call him and question him, considering him to be inattentive. And Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur would have to get up and give answers to the questions that the teachers would ask as a punishment. Now the best part is he would not only answer those questions, but he would also answer probable questions if at all any questions had arisen in the mind of the teacher after listening to his answer. So he would answer another probable question. And by hearing these, the teachers would then consider him exceptional, and Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thākur would actually say, now can I sit and peacefully read? And the teachers would grant him permission. He had a photographic memory. Once he read, he could remember details, and the teachers were so amazed by his intellect. They gave him a title called Siddhānta Sarasvatī when he was less than 10 years old. So he later wrote a very beautiful book called as the Siddhānta, explaining astronomical and astrological calculations. He also wrote different books on Sanskrit, explaining how that basically Sanskrit explaining how it roots back to the Vedas. In his childhood, his father would give him articles to edit, proof edit, and to fix the errors. His father was printing a magazine and called Sajjana Toshini. He would come up with very brilliant suggestions. Now, at the age of 11, he was editing, proofreading Jaiva Dharma of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which is a very philosophical book. Even devotees with 20, 30 years of practice read it and get much inspiration and motivation. He would do it at the age of 11. He would walk with his father, attend his debates, listen to both sides, and give his opinion at the end. He was very interested in debates and public elocutions, and he was also very excited to know about how the printing press worked. This is where Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur got his inspiration and gave the instruction to Srila Prabhupada to print more books. This was the seed where everything sprouted. Okay. He was interested in learning different fields of knowledge. It is described as he went to college, he was learning different streams of knowledge. He realized very soon he is about to graduate, and he thought to himself, if he graduates, his parents would look for a very beautiful girl and get him married, and then lock him up in material life. So on purpose, he dropped out of college, and if he doesn't have to have, his idea was that if he doesn't have an academic qualification, no one will give their daughter to him, and so he did this on purpose. He dropped out of college. He wanted to dedicate his life completely to Krishna. Even during his college days, he established a club on campus for those who wanted to be lifelong celibate. He actually got many members for that club, and they all wanted to be celibate for different reasons. Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur, but the main point in this is that notable point is that only Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur remained the member who was celibate all his life. The rest of them remained celibate for some time. They got married and they left the club. When he dropped out of college, he wanted some money and some job to sustain himself before he gave himself completely to Krishna's service. So he moved to Tripura and was employed by the king to teach the king's son Sanskrit. He was given a lot of assignments by the king to write articles on the history of different kings of Tripura. But later, when he realized that he is taking a lot of time, he wanted to give himself completely to the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur gave that job up. He told the king that he didn't want to work anymore because he wanted to give his life to devotional pursuit. But interestingly, the king was so impressed, he promised Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur lifelong pension. he promised him to give whatever he was earning now as pension for the rest of his life. Sarasvatī Thakur accepted it for a few years, then gave it up, thinking, I don't want to depend on any worldly person for any free money. And he wanted to give himself completely to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in 1914, the major incident is in 1914, where Bhaktivinoda Thakur left this world, and the very next year, Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur's spiritual master, Srila Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji, also left this world. So at this point of time, Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur had no shelter, and there were a lot of controversies after the departure of Srila Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. He was well known, was a very transcendental person, very difficult to be understood by anyone. Because he would live in seclusion, he was away, and he hated to have any public attention. And to the fact that he would live in public toilets just to make sure people don't trouble him. This is Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji. Because it was obviously it was a very dirty place, and people won't come and trouble him. He was a very high class renunciant. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had instructed Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur to take initiation from none other than Srila Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. And as a child, Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur went to Srila Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj and said, please accept me as your disciple. But Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji said, no, I'm too busy for disciples, and this disciple and guru relationship. I'm busy in my chanting and hearing, so you don't trouble me. Just go away, okay? But Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur kept insisting, and he said, "Please accept me. My father has told me to give myself at your lotus feet. He could, So he's like, I'm stuck between my father and you. My father won't accept me, you won't accept me, So Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji then said he could not refuse, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur was his revered Shiksha Guru. So he said, okay, you come back again, come back again, tell me, talk to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, let me talk to, that's what he said. He said, come back again, let me talk to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and see what he feels about it during his meditation. So after some time, Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur would come, and Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji would say, oh, I forgot to ask him. Come again another time till I'll ask him again. So far he hasn't told me anything. So in this way, he tried to keep the topic away from discussion. But finally, after so much of times of trials that he did, Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur said gave an ultimatum, spiritual ultimatum to Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji. He said that you either accept me as your disciple or spiritual master, or I'll jump into the Ganga and commit suicide. I don't want to live because my father has, basically instructed and reprimanded me and told me to, come and take your shelter, or else don't come home at all. So what do I do? He asked. As he said, I'm stuck between my father and my spiritual master, and both of you are rejecting me. So I've got nowhere else to go. I would rather go and, give my life in Ganga. So now Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji so very mercifully, accepted him and gave him the name Srila Varshabhanava Devi Daita. So Sri Varshabhanava Devi Daita, which means the servant of the beloved of the daughter of Sri Rishabhanu. Okay, so very interesting name. So the servant of the beloved of the daughter of Sri Rishabhanu, so Radharani. So Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, in his transcendental ecstasy and humility, would sometimes say, after I depart from this world, just drag my body through the streets of Navadvip and let my body be smeared with the dust of the holy Vaishnavas, the foot dust of the holy Vaishnavas. But this was just an expression of his humility, not to be taken in the literal sense. This is how humble as a devotee or he was. Now, the Babajis at that time, the other Babajis at that time, who were all misrepresenting, Gaudiya Vaishnavism, they had no clue that they couldn't use, and they had no clue, and they couldn't use their intellect. So after Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj left his body, they tied a rope and they actually were ready to drag him and his body, as Gaur Kishore Das Babaji had mentioned. But then Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thākur got to know, and he came roaring like a lion, and he said, I am the soul, and he actually said this, and I am the sole disciple of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, and none of you have any authority over his material body. He even reprimanded them by saying that you have to use your intelligence. Okay, yeah, he said whatever he said out of his humility. You can't drag and disrespect his holy body, and no one should actually touch his holy body, as none of you are qualified. And he was saying this, with a lot of power, and this was creating a lot of, uproar, kind of restlessness in the community. So later he said, I have a qualification for anyone for who wants to touch the holy body of my spiritual master. He wanted the qualification test. Okay, so he said anyone who has not had illicit sex for the last 1 year can come ahead and touch my spiritual master's body. But no one came ahead. Then he said anyone who had illicit sex who has not had illicit sex for the last 6 months, come ahead. But no one came ahead. He said 3 months, no one came ahead. 1 month, no one came ahead. 2 weeks, still no one. 1 week, still no one. So he said, just see the standard of our spiritual practice. And you want to touch the body of my spiritual master? And he said, get out. Everyone. He said, get out. And everyone was actually trembling and shivering, because that was the devotion, the power of Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur. That was the depth of his devotion to his Guru and to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's when the government official, then what happened is that after all this fiasco and understanding, Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur was very serious about this. The government officials came and gave complete authority to Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur to do the needful, and he gave holy samadhis to his spiritual master eventually. Now, let's fast forward a little bit, fast forward, because we also have to keep in mind the time. Prabhu, how much time have I got now?
Prabhu, 20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay. Thank you, Madhuri. Thank you. So, Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur,
Even if you have something extra, you can go, Prabhu. 5-10 minutes, it's okay.
Okay, thank you, Madhuri. Thank you. So he exemplified the epitome of steadfast practice and renunciation. For about 10 years, he lived in Navadvip, chanting 300,000 names of Krishna every single day. So that is 192 rounds of Mahamantra every single day for 10 years. He was living very simple life, and he just had a kopin under his waist, and he lived in a small place, small hut filled with with holes on the roof. Sometimes it would rain and he didn't even have time to fix the holes, because if he tries to fix the holes, then he wouldn't be able to finish his rounds. So he would just sit with an umbrella and chant and keep chanting and finish his rounds. And he would have prasadam, honor prasadam only after finishing his 192 rounds. And the best part is he would drink water from Ganga and take bath there and eat what is naturally available. He would, eat from. He would drink the water with his palm and he would eat on the ground. He didn't have a plate or a glass to do so. So he lived a very simple life. During this time, one follower of Bhaktivinoda Thakur came searching for Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur, and he asked the villagers, have you seen someone like this, very scholarly? And they said, we have not seen anybody like this in our place or in the forest. They have only seen one person who is living like a madman, who just walks around jumping, crying, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. And he had tears flowing from his eyes, and he would just keep chanting and jumping around. He looked like a madman who was intoxicated, and the villagers basically told this person not to go close to Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur. They were scared, so they said, better, stay away from him. But the person, he went to the forest, and the moment he saw Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur, he understood that he was, who he was. And then he requested Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur to come to Calcutta, to go to Calcutta, to preach the message of Chaitanya. And but unfortunately, Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur turned him down by saying that, don't you see the pastimes of Panchatattva around? He kept saying this to the person. He said, they are all dancing and chanting, just look around. He saw, but the person, he tried to see, but he couldn't see anything. And Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur, he said, just to be here and chant the holy name. He said, just be here. Don't go anywhere else. And chant their holy name, and they will give everything. Who the Panchatattvas. So in this way, he lived for 10 years, and later, from a picture of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he took sannyas just from the picture, because his father was not there anymore and his spiritual master had departed, and there was no qualified Vaishnava to take sannyas from. So with sannyasa clothes and with the danda and with very sharp tilak, after taking the sannyas and shaved head, he went to the same follower of Bhaktivinoda Thakur who had come 10 years back to the forest, to Calcutta, and said, now I am ready for preaching. This is what Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur said. From there on, he started his preaching, and he preached and established 64 Gaudiya Math in Bharat, and he had a very illustrious life at that point of time. So he had some standout principles. For example, whenever he received prasadam, he would with different items on the plate, he would mix all of them and eat it together. Now, Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur's point of view was, if you keep them separate, if you give the prasadam separate, you would like a bit of something and you don't like a bit of something. And we would say that I want more of the sweet and I don't want this and I want only this. But if we mix it all up, we see it as the remnants of the Lord. So you can't distinguish between one from one another, and you have everything as the mercy of the of the Lord. Such was the thought process of Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur Prabhupada. And he also enforced chanting of 64 rounds of japa. He would say that the Supreme Lord doesn't accept anything unless and until a person chants 100,000 names of Krishna. And even when Grahasthas would write to him and say we have no time, he would to chant to 64 rounds every day. He would say, adjust your time in such a way that you can chant 64. There was no compromise on this at all. So he was thus called the Simha Guru, not just in his mood, but sometimes he would physically also roar. Another beautiful principle, whenever Kirtan, which he followed, whenever Kirtan used to go on, he would pick purity over musical ability. Someone with musical ability, but with less purity, he was able to detect it very, very clearly. He would prefer to give the kartal and harmonium to someone who can't keep the beat, kartal and mridanga to someone who can't keep the beat and who can't keep the melody, but still could sing from their heart. So this was the mood of Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur Prabhupada. Let us offer our pranams to Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur, whose appearance day we celebrate today, for giving us his divine grace, his disciple, his divine grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who took his Guru's mission worldwide and gave us the opportunity to be an insignificant part of Gauranga Seva. And with this, let's recite Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Pranati. Mataji, are we presenting that?
It's on screen.
Yeah, it is there.
Okay. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī iti namine Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhuryojvala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murte Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Siddhanta Dhvanta Harine Rupanuga Viruddha Siddhanta Dhvanta Harine. Okay, Shri Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur ki Jai.
Can you read 2 more times, Prabhu, and everybody can offer flowers in their altars?
Okay, sure.
I can repeat.
Yeah, thank you. Namah Vishnupadaya
Namah Vishnupadaya
Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale
Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale
Shrimate Bhakti-Siddhānta
Shrimate Bhakti-Siddhānta
Sarasvatī iti namine
Sarasvatī iti namine
Shri Varshabhanavi Devi
Shri Varshabhanavi Devi
Daitaya Kripabdhaye
Daitaya Kripabdhaye
Krishna Sambandha Vijnana
Krishna Sambandha Vijnana
Daine Prabhave Namaha
Daine Prabhave Namaha
Madhuryojvala Premadhya
Madhurya Swarupojwala Premadhya
Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida
Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida
Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti
Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti
Vigrahaya Namostute
Vigrahaya Namostute
Namaste Gauravani Shri
Namaste Gauravani Shri
Murtaye Dina Tarine
Shri Murtaye Dhina Tarine
Rupanuga Viruddhāpa-Siddhānta
Rupanuga Viruddhāpa-Siddhānta
Dvanta Harine
Dvantaharine
Nama Om Vishnupadaya
Nama Om Vishnupadaya
Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale
Krishna
Prasthaya
Preshthaya Bhutale
Bhutale
Shrimate Bhakti-Siddhānta
Srimate
Srimate
Bhakti-Siddhānta
Bhakti-Siddhānta
Sarasvatī Namine
Sarasvatī Namine
Shri Varshabhanavi Devi
Shri Varshabhanavi Devi
Daitaya Kripabdaye
Daitaya Kripabdhaye
Krishna Sambandha Vijnana
Krishna Sambandha Vijnana
Daine Prabhave Namaha
Daine Prabhave Namaha
Madhuryojvala Premadhya
Madhuryojwala Premadhya
Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida
Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida
Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti
Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti
Vigrahaya Namostute
Vigrahaya Namostute
Namaste Gauravani Shri
Namaste Gauravani
Shri Murtaye Dina Tarine
Shri Murtaye Dhina Tarine
Rupanuga Viruddhāpa-Siddhānta
Rupanuga Viruddhāpa-Siddhānta
Dvanta Harine.
Dvantaharine.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thākur ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
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 Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari
Prasanna
Bol.
Vasudev Prabhu ki jai.
Hari Bol. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Gurudev ki jai. So we'll finish today's session with this beautiful quote from his Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur. Would one of you like to read the quote?
Yes, Mataji, I will read it. Hare Krishna. A living entity cannot derive real benefit by reading hundreds of books or pretending to render devotional service according to his own ideas.
So without the mercy of Guru, Sadhu and Shastras, without the shelter, we will not be able to achieve anything just by merely reading the Shastras or, trying to follow the rules and regulations on our own. So on this note, let's all offer our obeisances to the Vaishnava devotees present here for having given this opportunity to share the whatever little information available on Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur. Vanchaya kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the assembled Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are like desire trees and can fulfill the desires of everyone. They are full of compassion for fallen conditioned souls. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for your wonderful class about our line Guru Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Goswami. In fact, he is our role model. He made us everyone to involve the Krishna consciousness more. He inspired many of them to involve in Krishna consciousness. There is no doubt. We heard from you a lot of things about our line Guru Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur. which we not heard before. Thank you very much for your class, Prabhu. Prabhu, just I want to add about that Gaudiya Math, Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thākura. In your lecture, you are saying that he built 64 temple. One of the temple in Chennai, it is in Rayapete. Before coming UAE, I was in Chennai to church out the work. I was staying in one of my family, one of my relative house. One of my friend told Morgan, let us go to buy milk from Gaudiya Math. In Gaudiya Math, they won't add water. They will give milk as it is pure. So this way he took me Gaudiya Math. So I seen Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Goswami photo over the wall. He looks like Mahatma Gandhi. Those days I was not aware ISKCON, that Gaudiya Math and all. So after coming UAE, after hearing the lecture from our senior Vaishnava, that Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Goswami is a spiritual master of our Prabhupada. He built many temples throughout India. One of the temple available in Rayapete. So I was guessing, I was recalling those time. So maybe that moment of association with Gaudiya Math maybe made me in ISKCON. That's why I used to think like that in a positive way. So Gaudiya Math is so pure in following the regulative principle of Bhakti Yoga.
Correct.
So maybe that moment of association made me to join in ISKCON. That I used to think like that actually.
Yeah, the glimpse, it's like the glimpse of the ray of Vishnu. Ray of Vishnu is Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur. To get a glimpse of him itself is a big blessing.
Right, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Prabhu, just I want to share one more thing. Our Prabhupada, when he meet Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Swami, first time, Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Swami was saying about importance of Bhakti Yoga. So now this is very important for this condition to soul to enlighten. So he was focusing that Bhakti Yoga. So those days, our India is fighting against the British for freedom. So Prabhupada was saying, now everyone needs freedom. Now you are talking about Bhakti Yoga. If I go spread this Bhakti Yoga, who will accept? They will say, first let us fight for freedom, then we will talk about Bhakti. So like that, he was just talking with this Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Swami. Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Swami told very coolly, very gently, see, the politics remain same after freedom also. Only people will keep on change. See, those days British were putting Indian people in struggle, whereas now our government itself putting us in trouble. See, now throughout India, election is going on. They are giving money for casting the vote, but after coming the power, they will take the money back from the. So this way the problem will be remain same, but Bhakti is pure, that is eternal. So it won't contaminate. Okay, now you are educated. Why you can spread this Krishna consciousness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu glory throughout the world. So this way our Prabhupada inspired his speech. So Bhakti is permanent. Okay. So the problem will be remain same all the time. It won't get changed at all. So you are educated. Please take up this service. So this way our Prabhupada inspired his speech, and slowly he gave up his family life and joined in ISKCON 24 hours to serve the Krishna. So thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for sharing your realization, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Everybody is blessed. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. It was really a wonderful class. Very enlightening. After many months or many days, we are going through the life history of Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Maharaj. So it was really, giving us a lot of energy to continue our bhakti. So very well told, Prabhu. Thank you very much. And the slides were
really
very nice. And I think this is the best way to engage you out of Emirates. Otherwise, I don't get you. You are now care of eminence.
I think I'm sorry, I don't want to say this thing like Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thākura said, you have to chant your 64 rounds and then adjust your life around it. Like that, you are giving me the order. So
Yes, and I want you to post the 2 books that you mentioned at the beginning in the chat, so that would benefit everyone.
I will. Hare Krishna.
Yes. Thank you very much. Is there any questions that you want to put on? You can. Prasanna Vasudev Prabhu is still there with lots of knowledge to answer.
Very bold. I will leave it up to all the Vaishnavas. I'm the least qualified here. The books, I will just,
Radha Sakhi is changing.
Sakhi is pasting it. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Any doubts or anything you want to add? I think all are self-sufficient with the knowledge they have received.
I should say this. Thank you for the mercy.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Our now last event is Kirtan, followed by announcement and prayers. The Sankirtana is the present Yuga Dharma. The Lord Chaitanya says to Sanatana Goswami, in the Kali Yuga, the occupational duty of the people is to chant congregationally the holy name of the Krishna. In Kali Yuga, one worshipped Lord Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Let us now enjoy the Kirtan sung by Gusai's team. Hare Bol, Hare Krishna. Over to you, Gusai's team. Hare Krishna.
Let us be chanting till the record starts.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna.
Rama Hare.
The song Krishna Vaiti Chaturmukha Guru Parampara, written by His Holiness Srila Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī Thākura Maharaj. In the beginning of creation, the science of devotional service was received by the four-headed Brahma from the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Devarishi Narada's understanding of this divine science was obtained from Brahma. The great sage Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, who was empowered to compile the Vedic literatures, became a disciple of Devarishi Narada. Sripada Madhvacharya, the founder of the Suddha Dvaita school of Vedanta philosophy, who visited Vyasadeva at Badrikashrama in the 13th century to learn from him Vedanta philosophy, calls himself a servant of Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. Purna Prajna Tirtha Madhva is the Guru and the sole refuge of Padmanabha Tirtha.
The two other principal disciples of Madhva are Narhari Tirtha and Madhava Tirtha. Madhava Tirtha accepted the great Paramahamsa Akshopya Tirtha as a disciple. The principal disciple of Akshopya Tirtha was known as Jayatirtha. Jayatirtha's service was for his disciple Jnana Sindhu.
Dayanidhi received the science of devotional service from Jnana Sindhu, and the servant of Dayanidhi was Vidyanidhi, Vidyadhiraja Tirtha. Rajendra Tirtha became a disciple of Vidyadhiraja Tirtha. Rajendra Tirtha's servant was known as Jayadharma or Vijayadhvaja Tirtha. In this way, you should properly understand this disciplic succession.
The great sannyasi, Sri Purushottama Tirtha, received his knowledge in the service of his Guru, Vijayadhvaja Tirtha. the principal disciple of Purushottama Tirtha was Subramanya Tirtha. His servant was the great Vyasa Tirtha. Vyasa Tirtha's servant was Lakshmipati Tirtha, whose disciple was Madhavendra Puri Goswami.
The chief disciple of Madhavendra Puri was Ishwara Puri, and two of his other disciples were the renowned incarnations of Godhead, Sri Nityananda and Advaita Acharya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the spiritual preceptor of all the worlds, made Ishwara Puri greatly fortunate by accepting him as his spiritual master.
Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya is not different from Sri Radha and Krishna, and is the very life of those Vaishnavas who follow Sri Rupa Goswami. Sri Swarupa Damodara Goswami, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were the givers of great happiness to Vishwambara Sri Chaitanya.
The great soul Jiva Goswami and Raghunatha Dasa Goswami became very dear to Rupa Goswami. Jiva Goswami was a disciple of Rupa Goswami and Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. A disciple of Advaita Acharya, disciple Yadunandana Acharya, was accepted by Rupa and Sanatana as their third brother. Raghunatha Dasa Goswami's beloved student was Krishnadasa Kaviraj Goswami. Krishnadasa Kaviraj was an intimate friend of Lokanath Goswami. They lived together in Vrindavana and always discussed the topics of Krishna with one another. Lokanath Goswami, a disciple of Gadadhara Pandita, had only one disciple, whose name was Narottama Dasa. Narottama Dasa was always engaged in the service of his guru and also engaged himself in the service of his guru's intimate friend. Thus, he became very dear to Krishnadasa Kaviraj Goswami. To serve at the feet of Narottama Das Thākura was the only desire of Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thākura, who was the fourth Acharya in the disciplinic succession of Narottama Dasa.
Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thākura was the Shiksha Guru, instructing spiritual master of Baladeva Vidyabhushana, to whom he taught the precepts of Srimad Bhagavatam. Jagannatha Das Babaji was a very prominent Acharya after Sri Baladeva Vidyabhushana and was the beloved Shiksha Guru of Sri Bhakti-Vinoda Thākura. Bhakti-Vinoda Thākura's intimate friend and associate was the eminent Mahabhagavata Sri Gorakishora Das Babaji, whose sole joy was found in Hari Bhajan.
These great saintly Vaishnavas are all Paramahamsas, or devotees of the highest order, and they are all part of Lord Gauranga's own spiritual family. Their holy feet are my refuge. I have no real interest in devotional services, and I am poor and lowly Tigandi sannyasi named Sri Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī. The renowned Sri Varshabhanavi Daita Dasa, the initiated name of Bhakti-Siddhānta Sarasvatī, is always engaged in the service of his spiritual master, Srila Gaurakishora Dasa Babaji. His foremost disciple preacher is Sri A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who has spread the message of Lord Chaitanya throughout the world and is thus a reservoir of mercy and compassion for all fallen souls. Hare Krishna.
Going
Sankirtan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bol Sita Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Mataji, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. The kirtan was so melodious, energetic. Especially I want to say thanks to that youth whoever played that instrument. It was so wonderful, melodious. Once again, I thanks to Visesh team for this blissful kirtan. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. I want to say thanks to all Vaishnava joining today's program, and we kindly request everyone to join every week and give your valuable association. Once again, I thanks to our governing this program committee for giving this service to serve as main coordinator for this today program. Thank you very much. Over to Her Grace Govika Nagita Mataji. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Oh, Hare Krishna, Sriranga Guru, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Madhana Mohan Prabhu, Danda Pranam. Thank you so much for all the devotees. Thank you so much, Madhana Mohan Prabhu, for your wonderful service today. And thank you so much to all the devotees for taking up the services every week. Thank you all. So before we conclude our program today, we have few announcements, and we need the prayer requests for His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj and all other Maharaj and all other devotees for their good health, long life, and continue their services and their protection. Let us chant 3 times for all these devotees. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna,